So now we have Sarah Knight and Mark Langer Crane and Youth Drysdale from GIS talking about a data-driven approach to student engagement. So over to you. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Keith. And thank you very much for the opportunity of presenting in what a spectacular location. This is very much a team effort, and I also need to add Helen Beetham, Tabitha Newman and Claire Killen to the acknowledgements here in this presentation. We're really delighted to share with you today the outcomes from our 2019 Digital Experience Insights Student Survey. And I hope some of the messages coming out from our data will be able to build on what we heard this morning around some of the themes that Sue introduced, but also bear in the back of your mind as you go through some of the sessions throughout the next 3 days. Because one of the most important things from our work is that we do need to consider our students. We make so many assumptions of what they like, what their skills are, without necessarily always having that evidence-based approach around what students are actually doing with technology, what their views are around what we might be offering them. So for us at GIS, this work builds on many years of underpinning research, and I'm delighted today to share with you some of those results. I think importantly as well, with the drivers towards more decline of resources that we have, both for colleges and universities, we have to make sure that everything we do does count. We know there's a lot of rhetoric in the government policies around the importance of technology, but we know that there is still that mismatch between what we're able to offer, how we're able to support our staff, and those sort of widening expectations. But to sobering thought in relation to the investment that colleges and universities are making in their infrastructure, if you look at the percentage of spend in budgets relating to ICT and infrastructure, that we really do need to be making sure that we have actually got that evidence for return on investment. With your digital strategies, how do we know that we are investing in the right areas that are actually meeting our student requirements? So the work we've been doing around our Digital Experience Insights work over the past 4 years now has started to bring together a sector-wide body of evidence. We've got some longitudinal data now from over 100,000 students from over 100 institutions across the UK in relation to the impact that technology is having. The surveys that we have crafted together and tested extensively with users are now robust to provide us with the data that I'm sort of sharing with you today. And importantly, I think we often forget that we actually should also be asking our staff. We need to be able to validate the views that are coming through from our students about their uses of technology with what our teaching staff are thinking, what our professional services staff are using. And we really need to have that holistic picture of how technology is being used across our organisation. So with our work that we've been doing around those 3 areas, we now have got a mechanism for institutions to start gathering that data centrally and very much looking at digital in the lives of their staff and students, looking at digital within the institution and how that's being used by users, looking at digital at course level in terms of the experience that students actually having on their courses, and lastly, looking at attitudes, and particularly important there, I think, as well for teaching staff. So what do our reports say for this year's data? Well, we were very delighted to work with 50 universities and colleges across the UK, and we gathered over 29,000 student responses. So again, a very, very large sample size in which we were able to analyse the data. Really delighted to say, because these are literally hot off the press, that these are available from our GIS stand. So if anyone would like a copy, a physical copy, do come and visit us on the GIS stand later today. But the report is now available to download online as well. So in the short time that I have, this is a very quick tour of some of the key headline statements that have come through from this year's data. The depth of the report and the analysis, please do go on and have a look at in the full report, because there's a lot of sort of statistical work that Mark and Tabitha and Helen with the qualitative side have all been involved in reviewing. So if we look at our first theme, which is around how are students using technology in their own lives, and really important for us to recognise that students are using their mobile phones, their smartphones, as an essential tool in their everyday lives. And there's more opportunities perhaps for us to make in terms of ensuring that all our university or college systems are equally available and being able to use on those devices. There is some discrepancy there in terms of ownership around devices that we're seeing between HE and FE, and that comes back to some of the digital divide issues that we still need to be aware of. So what are students using? What are the most popular activities they're using their devices for? Well, for FE, it is around making notes and recordings, and as we're all doing today, photographs of slides, annotating our notes, using our phones and technology to actually record records of what we're hearing. For HE, it's very much about accessing lecture notes and recorded lectures, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. We are seeing assistive technology becoming more and more mainstream, and very much recognising that not all students will necessarily be assessed for their disabilities. They may have or may be using the built-in features of the standard devices that they have available now to help make learning more inclusive. And I think we always need to remember that we should be making learning inclusive for all, particularly, of course, now with the legislation that we're all working towards. I always enjoyed the word clouds, and thanks to Helen for her work on these. And it was great to see this one in particular when we asked students around an example of a digital tool or app you find really useful for your learning. And, they say it all, don't they, in terms of those similarities there between FE and HE, but just showing, again, if you look at some of the detail there, the variety of different sort of apps that students are using, but clear dominance of some of those ones that are highlighted there in the large text. So in terms of key messages for digital lives of learners, we really do need to make sure that we are ensuring that there is equitable access to technology for all. We need to be ensuring that we are supporting learners with their own devices. Only 53% of FE learners say they actually get support for that. And we do need to be making sure that we are not assuming that students are aware of the accessibility features built into the devices that they may be using. Staff confidence, and I'll come back to that shortly, is an absolutely important and important enabler, as students are still the most likely source of support is turning to their lecturers and their tutors for support. And we need to ensure that staff are digitally confident as well in terms of supporting that. So if we're looking at digital in the institution, we've got some sort of key stats there to highlight. In particular, we're seeing a very positive stat there in relation to organisations' digital provision. We did some correlations there with institutions that received positive and good NSS ratings, and there were some correlations there with the findings that we were finding on that particular statistic. So there was a correlation there. We're seeing that there are still some discrepancies around Wi-Fi for HE and FE. We're still not at 100% reliable Wi-Fi. Will we ever get to that point? Because expectations are always growing and moving. And, as I said earlier, we're still very much seeing that importance of ensuring that we can support students with their own devices as they come onto campus. The comments that we heard and the discussion that we had this morning in Sue's keynote, I think, are picked up here, that we are seeing students and having more of an awareness around data protection. And I think with all the work around data privacy and GDPR, we have seen a shift, an increasingly positive shift in that statistic. But we're still only at 61% for FE, and 54% of HE students are agreeing that their organisation are protecting their data. So that's certainly something that we need to work on. So it is about getting the basics right. It's ensuring that Wi-Fi is seamless, especially in areas perhaps that are thinking about student accommodation or areas that are perhaps off-site. It's also about ensuring access to timely and accessible lecture recordings. And for HE, that was absolutely one of the key areas of concern. They wanted good quality and they wanted timeliness. And also to be able to access good, high-quality academic content, and for more content to be digitised. So if we look at digital at course level, there's some key stats there in relation to students and how they are accessing information relating to their courses. Still a concern, I think, that only 29% of FE, 24% of HE students never work online collaboratively. And if we're thinking about preparing them for the workplace, that's quite an alarming stat. Also, I think although we had the positive trend of increasing around data privacy, there is still only a third of all students agreed they were told how their data is actually being used. I think that ties into some of the earlier comments there around data that we were hearing in the previous presentation as well. Importantly, digital at course level, and I think here we've got some really key stats that very much mirror what we had last year in relation to the importance of preparing students for the workplace. There is still a huge discrepancy between what students should be able to do and the expectations that are there when they move into the workplace. So we need to encourage more collaboration to emulate business practices to ensure that students are better prepared. We need to be looking at how we can support the embedding of digital skills into the curriculum. And that, I think, is still one of the core messages that we really need to work on together. And we need to be better at articulating why digital skills are important for the workplace. And there's some lovely anecdotes around email that we could relate to that. So looking at the last theme around student attitudes to digital, here we have got some positive stats in relation to students feeling more independent. They're able to fit learning into their lives when digital is used. 4 in 10 students would like more technology to be used on their courses. And when we added in a new question this year around asking students what their options would be the most useful to learners, HE students chose more practice questions available online, course-related videos, references and reading. So some interesting thoughts there in terms of how we can better support our learners with their requirements. So there are some more sort of key messages there in relation to where we can make learning more engaging, the use of digital, to really ensure that students can actually manage their time, take notes, encouraging learner autonomy, but importantly, involving students in these decisions. And only a third of learners said they had the opportunity to be involved in decisions about digital. And this is one of the core drivers for having this survey, is to open up that dialogue and to actually enable students to have the opportunity for being involved in discussions around digital with you. We've got some great resources. We've been working with NUS and developing a roadmap for supporting students to improve their digital experience. And we've also got some briefing papers for senior leaders around the importance of this. So there is some great guidance there in terms of being able to assess where your institution is in relation to this. So this was a little bit of a promotion for some of our other sessions, which we'll go into more detail. We've got a workshop after lunch, and we have got a session tomorrow with Helen and Tabitha, who will be presenting some of the deeper analysis work that has gone on around the data sets that we are collecting. But importantly now, I'd like to hear from yourselves around using our voting system. Do these results align with your experiences of your students? And I'm hoping that there are some similarities there, but more importantly, I'm hoping that you've got ideas on how you can gather your student views if you're not using insights. And which results surprised you most? So we're going to do question 1 first, and give you the opportunity of selecting yes or no, and then we will close the poll and display those. Do we want to close that one? I think we've still got people voting. Okay, great. I think that's quite a positive response there. And then moving into our second question, which results surprised you the most? So was there anything there from that very quick overview that you were quite surprised about in relation to those responses that we got back? And we just got a word cloud generating around that. Digital skills seem to be coming up there. And I think one of the things that we are seeing from this work is that actually the importance of preparing students for the workplace is both a driver for our institutions to be investing more in supporting staff with their digital skills, but also importantly, a driver for senior management to ensure that we are continuing to invest in this area. Great. So I think we'll close that there. So we're running out of time, but hopefully we can capture these and tweet those as they continue to come in. Super. Thank you. And just to say, as I said, we have got the report, but we've also done sector summaries as well for FE and for HE around those key stats as well. So please do visit us on the Just Stand and come and get your copy. So I think we've got, if we can flip back just to the last slide as a closing one. Oh, we've got questions. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do have 3 minutes or so for questions.
Okay. Do you want to flip back to the ones that are coming on screen as well?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of observations on the screen. I think we have our first question in the audience over there. So if you could introduce yourself and say where you're joining us from, that would be great.
Hello, it's Alan Williams from the University of Derby Online, so obviously with a particular sector. I think it's more a comment about you saying smartphones, mobile devices, not desktop PCs, not tablets, not even, it very much is the handheld devices of the future, I reckon.
I think that's true, although, I think for FE we're still seeing, when we ask the question around what one thing could institutions do to better support you, both from FE and HE, it was about having more access to laptops in classrooms and being able to actually use those devices, bearing in mind that, there are some more specialist activities that you do actually still need the desktop in front of you. So, balance there.
We have a question at the back as well. Maybe take that one.
And just say we have also have got some analysis to do on our online data set. So we did have about 1,500 online students that we're doing some further work on. Yeah.
Oh, hello, it's Christine Spratt from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. That was interesting, thanks very much. I've got a couple of comments rather than a question. The first is that it doesn't matter what the student's sitting in front of if what they're actually looking at doesn't have any meaning for them and isn't embedded in good pedagogy. So I think the dilemma that we have is based in the curriculum. So it's all, especially when I was looking at that, I saw students saying, what are they doing when they're accessing their digital devices, and they want good quality academic content. They want more interaction online, probably in face-to-face as well, and they want to have, a sound experience. So I think the curriculum's missing there, and you might have other, the rest of your data might unravel some of that, but unless we bring back the curriculum and what academics mean by the curriculum, it doesn't really matter what digital is, really.
I think your overarching comment there is about the curriculum, and it is about, I think all the research that we have today, it is about good and effective, sound curriculum and assessment design. And if you have got that in place with technology seamlessly integrated in there that will give your students those opportunities to develop their digital skills, that's what we're aiming for, that's what we're aspiring to. There is more detail in the report around the digital at course level that will start to sort of unpick that in a bit more detail, particularly some of the qualitative analysis as well. But no, absolutely agree, it is about that. Thank you.
I think we've got about 30 seconds or so. Are there any questions up there that you'd like to give a 30-second response to?
I think that's interesting about trends over time, and I think this is something that we are looking at. Obviously it's difficult because we have different cohorts each year, but that's something I think that we can have a little bit more detail on in some of the more detailed and in-depth analysis that Mark has been doing along with Tabitha. So I would tempt you to come along to their session tomorrow at 12:15, because I think that does sort of unpack some of that a bit more.
Great. I think we'll have to stop there, but thank you very much indeed for a great session, and thanks Sarah and colleagues once again.
Edina's work with learning technologists helps to develop skilled, data-literate students who can change our world for the better. Teachers and students can develop and share coding skills with Notable, our Jupyter Notebook service. Our Digimap services deliver high-quality mapping data for all stages of education. Future developments include a text and data mining service, working with satellite data and machine learning, and smart campus technology.